little bit of history here. I originally from Cuba, came to the United States in 1995. Went and lived in the Boston area for 18 years. Taught high school there. Many years. Came to Miami in 2014, but before I have been in Colombia teaching at Universidad La Sabana there. So, and finally here I've been since 2014, and Miami-Dade College was 2015. So I'm conversant here with the MLA and APA, as I told you. So basically the difference, this workshop is about APA, American Psychological Association, two of the basic formatting styles that you can find out there, even though there are more. There's a Chicago style that I never used, but I can speak a little bit about APA and MLA. APA is a style that is most commonly used to cite sources within social sciences. We use it here in psychology. Most papers that we get, education, psychology, think more. Most papers come in on APA style, and but if you have to write something dealing with the liberal arts, humanities, English, and the like for example, a paper on a literary work, which is basically what we do in UNC 1102, which is one of the two courses that I teach at Miami-Dade College. You generally will use the MLA style, but we're not going to deal with MLA today. We're going to focus on APA. Yeah, it's working. So there is at the end, as I said, I'm going to send you this PowerPoint, and hopefully it will open for you, and you wouldn't have to go through all the pains that I have experienced today here. But anyway. There is an APA specific publication. However, I encourage you to take a look at the 8th edition. Actually, this is a 6th edition. The 8th edition is the MLA. This little book here that you can find, I strongly recommend that if you don't have it, you get it. It's you can take a picture later on at the end when we turn on the lights. It's a condensation of everything that is important on APA, and if you come to our lab next door without a paper check, chances are that the tutor that works with you will come up, will show you up, and will open it, because I do it all the time. So I even there's even sample paper here that I use a lot when I'm checking a student paper. So this is like our Bible here. If you're interested in MLA, there's this handbook that it's the veteran handbook that has everything MLA. And at the end, you'll see there's an online resource that I find extremely useful, which is the Purdue OWL. And I'm going to give you the URL there, so because it has both styles condensed in a website, so it's very, very, very useful to the OWLs. It's not only because Purdue University's mascot is an owl, it's also because OWL stands for Online Writing Lab. So, there you go. So, we'll see that at the end. But anyway, writing for behavioral and social sciences, that is this APA style, American Psychological Association style. It's used for writing empirical studies, literature reviews, come very, very often to our lab, theoretical articles, methodological articles, case studies, and many other types of articles dealing with social sciences in general terms. The correct citation of your sources is serious business. We are here, as you probably know, there is a general battle, I would say, that is waged against plagiarism. Plagiarism is, for us in the Western world, it's a real problem. I think that credit should be due to the person who deserves the credit, and that's why plagiarism is it's a huge problem, because obviously if you write something, if you create something, you want to get credit for it, and this is one of the main reasons for this format and for the citation system that is used in the And besides the fact that when you present a paper, you want to not only to prevent against plagiarism or prevent yourself from plagiarizing anything, but also because you're giving your paper the solid view and vision that provides citing people from that are experts in the matter and that you have studied thoroughly, and you want to present your professors, and you know what you're talking about, because you're citing people who know, or at least supposedly know what they're talking about. All right, so the general documentation guidelines, I'm not going to, basically when you sit at a computer and open a Word document, this is the format you will find. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. Just a couple of mentions. Yeah, the font and the preferred font type. Times New Roman and font size 12, double space with the margins. Everything else is practically given by Word when you sit at the computer. But surprisingly, sometimes students have issues with the type of font, and I've seen that many times, right? It's not that you cannot use other fonts, it's that for the sake of standardization, the font that is, the preferred font is Times New Roman, size 12. So everything else is practically given by the program if you're using Word. And of course, the 8.5 by 11 type of sheet is the normal type of paper they use for papers. So even with the in the case of MLA, well, we're not doing MLA here. MLA requires in the right hand side corner and the header your last name, which APA doesn't, by the way. In APA requires the running head, but even the running head there. In the case of LMLA, your last name, that requires also, that should be also in Times New Roman. Sometimes when you write on the header, the program takes you to Calibri, which is like the default font there. So everything is on this. We are on the same page here. We should use Times New Roman. The page number on the upper right hand corner. So nothing like right justify. And here we go again. In Word, the header location is accepted. We're going to show you one of the slides. There's an example of this. 5 spaces. Indentation. Indentation. Generally, the beginning of every paragraph is indented, and the good thing about Word is that by just clicking on the tab, once there's your required indentation, you don't have to worry about counting spaces. You just hit tab once, and there's your ideal indentation there. The order of pages. If you have written a paper with us, or with any professor for that matter here, you know that there's a title page when you write in APA, on an MLA, and there's an abstract. The text, the way it starts, the references, tables, figures, appendixes. We don't usually receive papers that have tables, figures, and appendices, but for sure, I would say that 80%, probably more of the papers we check here, we check are any with references. Unless you're doing something that requires statistics, and then we will have the table, figures, and appendices, but other than that, most of the papers end with the references. Let's take a look at the title page. It's your page number 1, and it requires, it has your title, obviously, authors, affiliations, or authors, and the article title, uppercase and lowercase letters, center and position you have on the paper. Again, the author and the running head on the title page, you write the words running head, and that's the only time in which you write them. And the running head proper should be in all caps. So you have a good example there of what a title page should look like. This optional information, generally you don't see it normally, at least in the papers that come to us. You have the title, the name, and the institution, which in our case is a business university. Let me just finish here and I'll let you have your question. Your running head is a synthesis of your title. So here you see the same title and running head, but if your title is, I don't know, interventions in high schools or with high school students in the Miami schools, your probably running head would only be like interventions high schools or something like that. Say no more than 50 characters and all caps. Yes?
That was my question.
Oh, okay.
Did it differ? Because there was the same, but I've seen it different.
Well, I can tell you this is the most updated version, and it's the one you're going to find there, right? So
I'm saying the running head is the same as the title, and that was my question.
No, that's because probably I didn't do this PowerPoint. It's in the department. It's been there. I added a couple of slides, but this was there before. So probably this is taken from somewhere else that had it like that. But let's say that the title is any longer than this, and then your running head is a synthesis of a title, like the content words in the title. Generally, what you do with it. So every now and then you find running heads that are too long. Or too ambitious, I would say, right? Yeah.
Otherwise, it could just be the same.
Yeah, because what happens is that basically, is this short title. My advice there is that if you know content words and content and function words, I'm also being an ISO teacher, I'm familiar with that terminology. My advice is use the content words, that is nouns, pronouns, adverbs in your running head, and forget about prepositions, conjunctions, and things, because that's a way of making it a little more synthetic than the. Another interesting thing is that while you literally write running head in your title page, once you go from there to the abstract or to the text proper, the running head towards the words disappear. And then you keep your running head but crossed left, and no repetition of the two words running. Okay, let's move on. The abstract proper. Any questions with the title page other than hers? Okay, move on to the abstract. Obviously, the title page is you do it on one page, then you move on to another page with the abstract. And why the abstract? Some professors require the abstract. Some professors don't. As it reads here, it's a faculty option. Generally, what do you write abstract in the end?
Because it's like an overview of your whole research study.
That's exactly why. That is, you are publishing your paper in a scientific magazine, or you present it in a forum or something, and they give you either online or in a booklet or something. So I would like to see her paper, and it deals with this. So the abstract is like the gist of what you did there, summary, and that's what it's all about. What's the abstract? The interesting thing about the abstract is that it's not indented, and it's only one paragraph. So you have your running head there. I don't know whether they put running head, because it shouldn't be. Not indented, only one paragraph. If you see it here on our wonderful booklet, you can see that there's no. That's a mistake. There shouldn't be running, or maybe it was from my previous version. That's probably what happened here. But the running head, it's the way it should be. That is just the text inside there. But even things is that it's not indented. It's a single paragraph. And something that varies too a little bit is that some professors require keywords at the bottom. Some of us don't. Actually, this version doesn't speak about keywords, but in case you decide to put keywords at the end, that's the only moment in which you indent keywords and you write it in italics, and the keywords proper are in regular typing, not in italics. Okay. So, but it seems that it's a requirement that is optional too, because we see it a lot with some professors are more picky about that and they require your keywords, but most don't. So just an option to have in mind there. But did it say it here? Even this PowerPoint doesn't mention keywords, so it seems that to me, it was something useful in the sense that for the same thing. I mean, if you are brushing quickly through, okay, well, this, and interventions, high school, or something like that. So it's a paper that deals with that. So to me, it's a good guide for the reader. But in the end, the abstract is what it is. Okay, questions with the abstract? Titles, clear and concise. It should not contain more than 12 words. Obviously, you should refer the main topic if you're writing about, I don't know. And something that we strongly recommend is that there should be a correspondence, and probably this is something that is obvious, but you'll be surprised that sometimes the titles don't match what the main idea of the paper is all about. So if you write something in humanities in English, I see that a lot. I mean, your title should match your thesis and your topic sentences and things like that. When you're teaching that, that's the way it is. And the idea is that everything should flow from top to bottom, and your paper begins with the title, and the title should reflect that idea. So it seems obvious, but it's surprising how sometimes students overlook this and do things that don't contribute to the quality of their paper. Capitalize the major words, and by major words we're talking content words. I don't know about the words containing 4 letters or more, but at least the so-called content words should be capitalized. Center, obviously, and conjunctions, articles, and short prepositions are not considered major words or function words. All right. Of course, there are exceptions. Titles of books and articles in which the first word it's capitalized, and like in this citing here, right? The citation of a book by Wellman, Target, and Sebek. And a hyphenated compound, the second word is not capitalized. Minor details here. This is important, writing clearly and concisely. And that happens a lot when English is not your first language. And in our institution, we have, probably in the Miami area, for that matter, a lot of students who take English or have taken English as a second language. And if they come, even when they come from a language that is Spanish, which is not very synthetic as it is, and they have to express ideas in English, they tend to use Spanish syntax to write in English, and that causes a problem because then the papers become a little too wordy, and that conspires against the message, at least in English, the way it should be. Let's not forget that we're talking academic language here. Academic language is basic, is precise, is arid. There is no flowering here. There's no. It's not creative writing, for that matter. There's something that I always like to hammer into the students' ideas of what they're doing. You have examples here: avoid bias or pejorative language, avoid anything that can cause offense. You want to be as politically correct as possible, and you have certain things that could be controversial, as those examples there. And every now and then, actually, I was given as an example of this, the use of pronouns, pronouns and possessive adjective, he or she, and his or her. I was used to tell my classes, I don't know, 60 years ago, you would have a student in my class, and then in the second sentence you would use he, because that was the normal thing to do, because you would use the masculine pronoun to generalize when talking about one student. Later on, with the after the 60s and all the revolutions, it became fashionable to start using he or she. So a student in my class did this, and he or she, blah blah. Then you come across authors who are feminists, and they would use she, or a combination of he/he. And of late, you see more and more then the use of they instead of he and she. And then all of a sudden you have a student whose high school teacher taught her, oh no, you shouldn't use they, you should always use he or she. And then she comes to me and tells me that. I say, wait a minute. If you're writing a he or she, yeah, it's okay if you use it once or twice, but if you're going to use that for your paper, it would be a little tedious to read that. So you have to keep that in mind too. I mean, you are writing something for somebody else to read, and it has become customary. And then I did my homework, and I found that yes, the use of they as a gender neutral pronoun, it's acceptable. So, which is something that Spanish doesn't have, by the way. Spanish has a little advantage there, because you solve the problem with su sometimes in Spanish. And but anyway, just a comment on how political correctness is desired too. And all right. Yeah, active rather than passive. If you're not familiar with active and passive voice, you have an example there. The researcher did not consider the age of the participants, and the participant's age was not considered by the researcher. That would be the passive voice, sending you back to high school learning. Active voice is preferred rather than passive voice. Why is that? Well, I guess because it's more precise, and it indicates, because in active voice, you know who is doing the action, because the subject is doing the action. In the case of the passive voice, the subject is the recipient of the action that is being performed by the verb. So I guess that's why they make it a point to use the verbs in active rather than in passive voice. This is something that we see very, very often, and we have to be careful with that, and that's why I emphasize when checking papers, I cannot emphasize any more than I do the fact that after you write, you have to put your paper to rest and then come back to it. Let's say that to me, it's a great piece of advice, because then you are able to see what the mistakes, and you will be surprised at how many mistakes you come across in something that you wrote. But that when you revise, you realize, wait a minute, there's something wrong here. And one of the things that is that happens very often is that there is incongruency, there is incoherence with the use of verbs, especially with the tense. If you're writing a paper in which you're telling a story, you're generally going to use a past tense, because stories are generally told in past tense. But if you're talking about something that you are writing habitually, then you use the present tense, and you should stick to that and compare when you use one tense and you use the other, and try to be consistent throughout your paper. Of course, there are moments in which you need to use a switch and use a tense other than the one you're using, but there should be a justification for that. Here you have a case of, and I don't know about this first example. I mean, I think that the fact that this publication was done, or this first one, Sanchez 2000, presented similar results, and then Sanchez 2000 presents similar result. It's to me it's a little debatable because it all depends on the context in which you're using. The next one, since the 1980s, researchers have used the method. It's more clear to me because you have the use of an expression beginning with since, which is typical of present perfect, and then you have the use of the present perfect here, rather than here, in which you have the past tense used with an expression that requires present perfect. So, just a couple of examples of how one has to be careful with the verb tenses. If you have any questions, people, let me know. Stop me. We go again. Why did I have to do that? What's that? Okay. Okay. You like this. All right. Whatever. I'm gonna go back. Okay. So yeah. Okay. Like subject-verb agreement. Examples there. The number of participants was 45 against the number of participants were 45. Why? Why is there a problem there? In this first two, correct and incorrect?
Because the research took place already. So
easier than that. This is your subject in this sentence. You have the number of participants. Your subject is the number of participants, and then you have your verb here, and 45 is the rest of the sentence. So because you're talking of the number, you should be using the singular, the verb being singular, against this one, which is not generally used in English. And if you have students, as I said, for which English is their second language, this is something that you see very often. The news is discouraging. So sometimes we tend to, especially Spanish speakers, tend to pluralize certain nouns that are singular in English, even though they have an S. Like for example, the news. The data show a strong correlation between variables. That you have a collective approval there. Datum, or you pronounce the data or data, doesn't matter. But data is usually, it's always plural, and the phenomena against the phenomenon. So phenomena occur every 100 years. Oh, hey, we can move it back. Good one. Mechanics. Double spacing is required throughout most of the manuscript. So depending on the version of the word version you're using, sometimes the two spaces are a little too big. Sometimes you can get away with 1.5 space. Single spacing can be used for table, titles, and headings, etc. And you'll be surprised. I read a paper this week in which the student told me, "Oh, I didn't know you had to leave one space only after a comma, after a punctuation mark, like a period or comma, something like that." And then I asked her, "So what do you do?" "No, I left 2 spaces after a period, 1 space after a comma." "No, why would you do that?" Surprisingly, those things happen. There are sometimes people who have conceptions like that. A space after each punctuation mark, and that's it. And you can check it anywhere. And like this too, if you're writing your title or whatever, MA or PhD or something, you don't need spaces between internal abbreviations. The initials of personal names, periods. Okay. It seems very obvious and basic, but you find all kinds of things when you check papers. right? Commas, royal pain in the neck, the comma, okay? So if you have issues with commas, you are not alone. Everybody has problems with commas. Commas may lead to either splice commas, as they are called, that is using a comma where it shouldn't be, to the infamous run-ons, that is sentences that go forever without the use of comma. Somebody said once that commas were like the gates of a language. That's exactly what they are. They connect ideas, but not necessarily sentences, and believe me, commas are complicated. So there are a couple of pieces of advice here. Do not use commas to separate parts of measurement, like for example, pounds and ounces. Use the metric system as a rule. I don't know what they threw this out here within commas, but anyway, commas before and in lists, for example. When you have a series, this is what is called a series. So you have a series of more than 2 elements. You place a comma in academic language, by the way. In journalistic language, we don't necessarily do it. But in academic language, in a series of more than 2 elements, you use a comma before n. Like, for example, apples, oranges, and strawberries. Apples, comma, oranges, comma, and strawberries. You need that comma there before n. In academic language, I repeat. In other types of language, I mean creative writing, in academic writing, I mean in creative writing, in journalistic writing, you are not required to do it, but in academic writing, you are. It's something that is not. Sometimes students forget about that. Commas to set up a reference in parenthetical comment, like for example, this is something that you see very often in when you are citing Patrick, 1993. That's a work that refers to this author. Commas for a seriation within a paragraph or sentence, like 3 choices are true, comma, false, and I don't know. Semicolons for seriation, and there are commas within the items. Let's say that the semicolon is a little more, it has a higher stature compared to commas. So commas, and then you have to separate, use the semicolon, especially when you have full sentences that belong in a series, like for example here in the middle of the item, there are commas, here are none, and so we use semicolons throughout. So commas are complicated, people. So. Abbreviation. So the piece of advice with commas is, when in doubt, don't be afraid. Go to the your resources and type. Now we can find everything online now. Type use of commas, and you get. At least it happens to me all the time. So, and I have my cell phone. I have a Merriam-Webster dictionary there, and I'm using constantly in my classes and tutoring, because, oh, what about this word? Is it really a word? So let me check it out very quickly. So the same goes for commas. There are a million resources out there. There are all kinds of grammar and applications you can use, and when in doubt, checking them out. That's my piece of advice. And they are hard to like prepositions as well. Prepositions in it, probably the most difficult part for a learner of a second language to have a command of the prepositions of a language. When to use by, for, so on and so forth. Abbreviations, like American Psychological Association, APA, if an abbreviation is commonly used as a word, it does not require explanation, like LSD or REM or ESP. My advice here, besides the use of periods and not periods in degrees like PhD or IPA, or measurements or the plural abbreviation, the thing that I correct a lot when checking papers is that sometimes the students throw an abbreviation there of something that maybe he or she knows very well, but the rest of the readers do not necessarily know about it. So sometimes they throw out there, I don't know, GED. Oh, I was doing GED. So, and my question is also, what is GED? Oh, General Education Diploma. So why do you define first what GED is by writing General Education Diploma and then parentheses GED, and then the second time you speak about that, then you use your, come on, well, it's something that seems to be very, very obvious, but sometimes you get so embedded, and this is not, I'm not criticizing anybody here, I'm just trying to say that sometimes you are so embedded into the subject and you know it so well that you take for granted that everybody else is going to know what you're talking about. And that poses a little problem there because that might not be the case. And you may be using something that is not well known for the rest of the people. So take your time. The first time you talk about institution or you use something that it requires an abbreviation, define it first. And then from that moment on, go ahead and use your abbreviation. Don't forget about that. That's you see that every day. Numbers. This is another case of interesting point with numbers. When to use the number spelled as a number and when to spell out the number. Common fractions and common expressions like 1/2 or 4th of July in this case should be spelled out. Large numbers beginning sentences. You don't want to begin a sentence with 30 written in number, but you want it spelled out. 30 days at September, etc. Numbers which are inexact or below 10 and not grouped with numbers over 10, 1 tail, test, 8 times, etc. Numbers use numeral for numbers 10 and above and lower numbers grouped with numbers 10 and above. For example, from 6 to 12 hours of sleep. But if you talk about 1 student or 3 students in my class, it's not in good taste to write 3, like the number 3, but spell it out, 3. Particularly when you're dealing, this is something you see very often, particularly when you're talking about, when you're using, you are referring to numbers before, below 10. Once you become in the 2-digit realm, then it's better taste, I would say, to use the numeral. But before, below 10, I mean, spell them out. It doesn't look good, 2 or 2 students or 3 cases, and you spell it out. Okay? Shouldn't be. Ordinal numbers like cardinal number, the first item of the 75th trial, and so on. To make plurals out of numbers at S with no apostrophe, like that. This is another very common mistake. People generally don't know how to write the 50s or the 60s, and they tend to do all kinds of things. 60 apostrophe S, or 60, yeah, no, it's very simple. Just a 60 and an S. Here. No, not capitalized, that's it. Don't make it too more complicated than it is, all right? So, combinations of written and Arabic numerals for back-to-back modifiers like 5 4-point scales. I would say that they say it's a little bit of common sense here. If it is, you can refer to this, and that's what this guy is all about. I mean, I'm giving you a ton of information here. And this is a little difficult to memorize, so I think it's going to be very useful that you have the PowerPoint in the end because you could be able to refer to it as the other resources you have. The aim of this presentation is to give you a general overview of the whole thing and to in my opinion, to point out some salient aspects that people should keep in mind when writing a paper. But believe me, these things are being done for a reason, and it's because it's hard to memorize all this information, okay? Yeah, you can use all the common sense you want, I said that, but sometimes you have to, wait a minute, you have to take your time saying, how do I do this? There you go. Percent symbols only with figures, metric abbreviation with figures like 4 kilometers, exact statistical references, scores, sample sizes, a million different reasons and ways of using numbers in this particular case. About the use of the first person singular or plural in most college papers. unless you're dealing with something that dictates that you have to refer to yourself. This is something that I strongly recommend. I refer to it as, you don't need to personalize your paper unless you have to. Unless you're telling a particular anecdote or story in which you were involved. I saw this patient, or this patient was referred to me, but other than that, I cannot emphasize anymore. This is academic writing. You want to be as precise as possible. You want not to personalize what you're doing here. So there is also the tendency of using you as a person. You do this and then you do that, and if you can avoid that, please do. Avoid personalizing the paper. So I subscribe to this narrative form and avoiding personalization and the use of I and we. And here we go again. There are cases in which you have to use them. Don't get me wrong. It is what it is, but the rule of thumb is try not to, as much as you can. Text. So once you have your title page and your abstract, then you can start working your text. Everything that we saw in between was general recommendations before we get here. So you begin your text on a new page. Running ahead and page number. Here we go, the same thing. The sections, the title, center to top, double space, then type the text. Some students tend to, there are different schools of thought here depending on the edition. Some, I don't like highlighting particularly. That is, everything in your paper should be, and there shouldn't be any room for bold, and I don't see a problem with that. However, if you look at a little Bible, they use, in certain cases, titles and things, they use the highlight or bold typing. And I am not a fan of that because I don't see any reason for that. Not even to highlight that that's where the title is centered, and and something else. There is a tendency in some students to leave a double space between the title and the next first line. No need for that either. Just one. I mean, the regular double space that you're leaving applies also to the title and the lights and comments. You don't need to extra separate the title. Okay? So, center of the top, double space, section of the text follow each other without a break. Do not start a new page when a new heading occurs. It's a paper, it's academic writing. Here we go again, it's not creative writing. Each remaining page should be also show the running head and page number. There you go, that's your example there. Yeah.
Can you explain to me before the slide, the second to last?
The section of the text file?
Yeah.
Meaning that if you write a conclusion, like for example, you have the abstract, okay, you have title page one page, abstract another page. But once you start writing your text, there's no stop until you get to the end, and then you have an extra page with the references, or for the indexes or illustrations or this and that. But once you start writing your text, there's no other single pages, not even for the conclusion. Conclusions are part of the text. Okay? The next page, beginning from the top, is the references. Both in APA and in MLA, it's you don't use references, you use works cited, but it's the same thing. Okay? It's just a matter of terminology there. So, do not start a new page when a new heading occurs. In other words, not even with subtitles.
What do you mean when a new heading occurs? Do you mean like?
Because okay, you will see this later. But let's say that you're talking about your title is my first APA paper, and then you want to write papers before my APA or and then this is a subheading of this. So
you mean like a subheading? You don't start a new page.
You don't.
Continue.
No, you continue the same thing.
The title.
Yeah. And as you see, everything is between the running head and the title and the first line. By the way, this must be a previous version because you don't use the words running head there. That's all. Forget about that part. And yes.
I'm sorry.
You're talking what?
Yeah, she said the online.
Oh.
Yes.
Forget about that, right? Okay. With the things that, with the you know, you gotta be scared when you hear things like that, right? So.
I was just wondering how, for those of us taking the class online, how we will have access.
You have a question? I'm sorry, I'm not used to these technological advances, and I got a little scared. What is it?
Okay, I'll make sure to type.
You have access to what?
How do we have access to this PowerPoint?
I'm going to send it to you. If I have your email here, I'm going to send I'm going to send an email at the end of this session with the PowerPoint attached.
Thank you.
So. Okay, I will. Definitely. Do I have your email address here?
I got it.
Okay, so please give it to them. I'll be more than happy. Okay? You're very welcome. All right. So let's move on. That's really scary. What's going
No,
on?
I kept hearing something, and I'm like, wow.
No, it's you know what happens is sometimes there are announcements that come over the phone from the main office or something. I say, is this something that is?
Citations attending online.
Yeah.
It's
right here, the teaching.
I know there is something here, but you know I'm not that technologically savvy. I don't know what's going on around me, and this times you have to be careful with. All right, okay, let's move on. So there you go, your text. Citation versus reference. The reference list is what goes at the end, and the citation is an in-text marker used to identify the source. Let me stop you here for a second. You will be surprised to see that sometimes students make in-text citations and there's no reference for that, or vice versa. They have a reference list, and when you read in the paper, say, wait a minute, and you have Adams here, and I didn't see Adams in your paper. Why? How is it? There should be a match. And I know it's laborious and it's complicated sometimes, and that there are resources for that as well. Maybe you're familiar with that, but there's even websites in which you can organize your references in a very nice way just by introducing the information of the data you're using. Okay? So in-text citation or something like that. So, or building a citation. There are several. The citation builder, I think there's even a citation monster or something. Don't quote me on that, but I know that there exists, and we have used them, and I've used them sometimes too. But my little grain of sand here refers to, it's in reference to the fact that everything that you're citing here in your text should have a counterpart in your reference list at the end. Because you're not citing Adams here, and then I mean to say, oh, Adams said this, and you went, so where's Adams here in your reference list? I want to know, because I'm interested in the topic. So there should be and sometimes what happens is that sometimes the student, oh, I made my reference list, but I will put the citations later. No, I don't think that's a good idea. I think that both things should go hand in hand, because especially if the paper is long, where does this go? Where did I get this information from? Who said this? And who am I quoting here? So you have to be organized. Writing the quality of the paper depends also on the degree of organization that we give to that we put into our paper. And sometimes it's hard. It is, especially if it is a long paper. But anyway, the basic rule here, basic piece of advice: citation should correspond to what you have in your reference list at the end of your paper. And all references must be cited, of course. Which brings us to the citations point. But even before that, sometimes you have references within references. That is so-and-so as cited by or as cited in so-and-so. So sometimes if you read a paper or you read an article, and in many cases, because the author is doing the same thing you're doing there, the author is giving credit to other people. So that's when some things get a little complicated, because in the end, the author is making reference to Bradford, and with the author, and the one you read is referencing Bradford, but you didn't read Bradford. You're reading what Adam said about Bradford. So in your reference, you're gonna cite Adams, but not Bradford. However, in the text, you should be giving credit to whoever. You're not gonna put it in the reference because you didn't read Bradford. You read Adams, not Bradford, which is embedded with Adams, but not Bradford. I mean, it's not something you read. You're just giving credit to Bradford because Adams mentioned it, and it should be.
So you cite them both within, but not at the end? Is that what you're saying?
The rule from there is as Bradford as cited in Adams. That's the general rule there. Bradford as cited by Adams in Adams 2016 claimed that. Okay. But did you read Bradford? Or if you didn't read Bradford, what do you put in the?
You're saying everything you've read.
But when you read Bradford within Adams, but you don't. Maybe you didn't read. Maybe you got interested in. Oh, let me read this article too, and then that's what you put in your references. But otherwise, if somebody's interested in the article, he or she would read Adams, and then he would. Oh, here's Bradford. You have to be practical here too, and things are done to the whole thing of the style and the formatting has a couple of goals. So one is standardization, and everybody follows the same pattern. But at the same time, it's also a way for the whole thing to flow. I mean, you want to, if you're reading something, you want to get the gist of what you're reading, and you get the information. Somehow it needs to be a pleasure to read. You're right. You know what I mean? Okay, and you don't. I hate it when you have to start stopping. And then the way things are done, and you have the last name plus. It's just to how was it done in previous versions? The footnote. But then the next to read something, you have to constantly go to footnotes. That used to drive me crazy when I used to write like that. And then that smaller print or at the end of the chapter.
And write, you have to write them.
Believe me, this simplifies things a lot and makes the reading a little more pleasurable than it should be. Because that going down to the footnote of it's still in use, but I think the way APA and MLA solve the problem is very practical, and very practical even for that matter of reading information that you want to possess and you don't have much time to. So, when quoting any words that are not your own, quoting means to repeat, summarizing facts and paraphrasing. Yeah, you may summarize, you may quote, or you may paraphrase, but you should be giving credit to whoever needs to be credited for information they're using that is not yours. That's another classic question that I ask. Oh, you're telling me this, and are all these ideas yours? No, I took it from here. You have to give credit to the authors. Okay, this is the way we do it here in the Western world. Maybe in Asia they don't do it like that, but here we live in America, and this is the way we do it. Okay. Keep citations, please. Give only information needed to identify the source on your reference page. It's cross-referencing. Do not repeat unnecessary information. If you are not sure, look it up. By the way, you can quote longer. I mean, you can have quotes because sometimes it's necessary to quote citations that are longer than 40 words. For instance, I don't remember the PowerPoint it's included, but there is a section in our summary book that even covers that, and then you leave you can check it out later if you want, but yeah, it's possible to do it by writing a paragraph and indent it in the same way, at the same time, and you're quoting literally somebody else's work. But you tend to keep citations basic and author's last name, publication year, page number of the quote. For example, Carrick, 1996, states that a traumatic response frequently entails, and I quote, delayed and uncontrollable repetitive appearance of hallucinations, suffering, intrusive phenomenon, end of the quote, page, period, at the end. After the end of the parenthesis, the second parenthesis. By the way, which leads me to another issue that we see very often, and that's probably because of the Spanish influence. Let me stop there for a second and do it. Quoting in English, and you finish a quote, I mean, no, phenomena, let's stop here. Maybe you know this, but because I see it very often, phenomena, period, quote. The punctuation in general, or the period goes inside the quotation, which in Spanish is the other way around. Okay, in Spanish, the phenomenon, and this is the end of your citation here. In Spanish, you do it like this. The period outside of the quotation mark. In English, inside. I don't really know the languages, but at least in Spanish and English, it's the other way around. It's opposite thing. So it's different. English inside, Spanish outside. Well, this is exactly what I was telling you. A quotation of 4 or more words. 40 or more words should appear without quotation marks, apart from the surrounding text in block format, which each line identifies spaces from the left margin. So you have there a whole quotation that is longer that necessarily have to go there, then you're giving credit to Neil, the author, and he found the following, blah, blah, blah. The whole text, this text is taken from, and by the way, look, a citation within a citation, Abdullah, from 1984, and then page number, good, why didn't they do it like this? My only explanation here is because it's the block citation, and because that's the ending, yeah, and it's singles, yeah, good.
But it should be double.
Single space. Not when you're doing with blocks here.
Oh.
Let me compare this with what I have here. Hang on for a second. So many details. Sometimes you get lost into the whole thing. And believe me, I work with this by my side when I'm checking a paper, and when I have a question like that, I go here, in-text citation, blah, blah, blah. When citing a direct quotation of 40 words or greater, the entire quotation is index 0.5 and no quotation marks are required. The indentation implies that it is a direct quotation, for example, and they give you the citation here. The punctuation period is placed before the actual reference citation. Good question. I don't find any reference here to the double spacing or single spacing. Let me take a look at the sample paper. I'll tell you in the sample paper with how they do it. You have in the sample paper, you have block citations, and I don't see any difference in the spacing. So I assume it's the same, the same spacing. Okay. And the only thing that changes is that it's the whole citation is a block. It's a paragraph, and it's indented. The whole thing is indented, not only the first line. The whole thing is indented. Okay. So. Many details. Many details to keep in mind. So.
You said it's double spaced?
Yeah, even though here it doesn't seem to be double space, but and here we go again. It also depends on the word version. I have noticed that 1.5 works very well, and it's perfect. Maybe it's the last word version, so the most updated word version. So sometimes, and it happens a lot when I check MLA papers and the heading. An MLA paper has a heading on the left, and it doesn't have title page. And Word, for some reason, Word is so capricious and such a pain in the neck sometimes. When you start writing citation, Word gives you like a double page. So you have to do manually, force Word to bring it to your desired space between lines. Which, as I said, sometimes 1.5 works, and get away with it. Okay. I know that it's am I doing it right? And people I don't know, so oh, he said this, and the book says that, and am I doing it right? You have to use your common sense, too, okay? And don't be afraid. I mean, it will be, if there is a space and it can be read clearly, don't analyze too much out of it, because, as I said, it's a million things to keep in mind here. If the source has no unknown author, then use an abbreviated version of the title. As it appears in the reference list, so you have something like this: sale for, and you're talking about you're making a citation here that has no known author, so you synthesize the whole thing into a cigarette and the year, and that's it. Yeah, 99. Yeah, this PowerPoint's a little old. I don't know. Okay, 1999, and the years of your work. Parenthetical citations, more than one author with the same last name. These are details and details. Citations, we can talk like forever, all right, about citations and how they're done. And these are the basic things. Two or more words in the same parenthesis are alphabetized. People who talk about the same thing, you know. When we up to 5 authors cite all the authors the first time. This is something useful, the use of et al. The first time you cite up to 5 authors, you cite them all: Smith, German, this, and finally in 1998. But then the second time you mention them, you can use the expression et al., which means and others. And by the way, see the format: et, no period, al, period, comma, date. Yeah, pain in the neck.
Does that stand for something like in Latin?
It's a Latin expression meaning
and others?
And company, yeah. And friends. Smith and his band. Okay. Yeah, and it's used very, very much. Et al. It's there. There's nothing wrong with it. Only that it applies to more than 3 authors. You can use et al. The surname of the first author followed by et al. The first time, and specific part of the source. You add the chapter or the page, so on and so forth. Personal communication, email, interview, phone conversation. You have everything now. You can cite from YouTube. The amount of sources is enormous. I found this on a Facebook page, and you can, okay, Facebook page. Yeah, there's valuable things on Facebook too, besides going to work.
According to the tweet.
According to Wikipedia. Wikipedia can be a little tricky, and because I teach literature, sometimes I trust Wikipedia to a certain extent. However, it let me down yesterday. I was looking for information on Roald Dahl, D-A-H-L, which is a very famous British author of Norwegian origin. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Okay, he's the author. So, and then it appears as an American writer in Wikipedia. I wanted to kill it. Are you kidding me? Really, Wikipedia? Come on, give me a break. So, yeah, born in the United States or something like that. U.S. writer, American writer, something like that. No. So, email message, citations, personal communication, blah, blah. The history of warfare, handling parenthetical citation. You have an example there of how to do it. You can see here the first and al plus then a single author plus then two authors, and by the way, then when you cite, you use the ampersand. Did you know that this little symbol here is called ampersand? I didn't know it until last year. I always would say, "Oh, that little symbol," and then somewhere I read, "Oh, that's called an ampersand." I said, "Oh, really?" There you go. Okay. Sometimes I forget what the name. So I remember today, but maybe tomorrow. You ask me tomorrow, I don't know what the name. So yeah, it's a good example there to keep there in. The trap of plagiarism. This is the general rule of thumb. When you have you're using information from another author or source, cite it. Okay. Actually, I made it a point this, and I repeated several times. I am not the author of this PowerPoint. I'm using it because it's possession of the department. But just I added a couple of there. Maybe that's why it's not working properly, because I added a couple of slides there. So yeah, at the beginning. Yes.
Self plagiarism. You can plagiarize yourself.
Yeah. You do not present your own previously published work as a new scholarship. That is, because you can cheat there. So something that you did like no, but it's being dishonest. I mean, you did this 5 years ago, and then you want to add to it, so you want to present it as something new, and so you are you can do it. So that's a practice. Hey, it's a lot of things under the sun. Okay, even that. Yeah. Of course, you're not going to sue yourself, but then you will be dishonest, because you're showing something that you probably did in the 20th century. You presented, oh, this is brand new.
But considering it was published, you just wrote a paper.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. If you thought about it, it's a little hard to get into your school. No, it has to be we're published, yeah. But you're presenting something that is new that it's not. Or apparently it's new that it's not. That's the point. Right? If you think about it, there's no way
Even if you wrote a paper but it wasn't published in a scholarly journal or otherwise, you just wrote a paper for class.
So what's wrong with citing yourself, man? What's wrong with that? I mean, as I said, or as Bardo said, sometimes we don't have answers for everything here, okay? And here we go again. Then common sense tells me, maybe nobody read it, fine, I get away with it. But if I publish it, or if I showed it to my professor or to my classmates, common sense tells me that I should give credit to myself, because in the end I put effort into it, and I'm doing something now that maybe I change, but I already talked about it. So it's a matter of using common sense, and at the same time feeling comfortable, I would say, with what you do. That's my only explanation there. So, the references. Okay, we finish the text. Bang, conclusions and everything, or conclusion and everything, and then we go into the references on a new page. Start a new page, references, enter, the top of the page, center, double space, hanging indent, second line, you have the first line flush left, and then the second line from there indented. Yeah, and you write number one, no. What the list of references should follow the alphabetical order, and that's what you don't need anything else. Okay, the alphabetical order is what determines your. You have an example there of the so-called hanging indent. Okay, so you flush left the first line, which includes the author, and then from that moment on, second, third, fourth line, they are indented. Italicize book titles, title of periodicals, italicize too. Italics come in very handy here. Magazine article, the whole name, then you italicize the name of the publication or the name of the article, newsletters, and you have here the volume which was published, the pages, because after all it's a journal or a magazine article. People, you cannot memorize all this, okay? And that's why there are your citation builder and everything else, because it's hard. It's difficult. It's laborious.
It's hard.
Anyway, so yeah, it's hard. It's what it is. So, and especially nowadays that we have so many resources that we cite from. Because I mean, back in the day, you went with books and that's it. It was a lot simpler. But now you can cite from anywhere, and a lot of research is done online. And so electronic sources galore out there, so we can stay forever talking about this here. Journal articles, DOI, name of periodical, day of publication, date, the author, the title, the authors, date of article, the full website, the URL, monograph required by journal issue. My advice here: use the resources that are out there when building. Use your citation builder. They are there for a reason, or use your resources that I'm giving you here, because it's complicated. Okay, and here we go again. There are so many sources where you can cite that. The basics is the alphabetical order. The indentation on the second line, or the hanging indentation.
Italicizing.
Huh?
Italicizing.
Italicizing the names, like for example, this is I forgot about this part. My first APA paper, and then you have a title of the book italicized, but then you have an article. These are basically books, so that's why you have but the second one, it's an article within a periodical publication, which is the Lancet. So the Lancet is the what you italicize there, not the name of the article. The difference here is that the Great War of Modern Memory is the name of a book. So,
and the other one is
an article within a magazine or periodical publication, and so on. Okay. The headings. This is what I was telling you. Title, and then my high school papers, my APA, my first APA paper, and then you have a subheading. There is a level for that too, depending on what goes where. Okay, the title is at the top, but then I have my heading, which is in a low level. And if the rest of the headings follow, there are different parts of this, but within the title, then they follow. But if you have subheadings within this subheading, then there is a full hierarchy here of headings. Levels of heading establish the hierarchy of sections. The topics of equal importance have the same level of heading. Avoid having only one subsection within a section. Use at least two subsections headings within any given section, or use none. Yeah, because it looks awkward. If you have subheading and then subsection only one, so why in the world are you using it? It doesn't make sense. Here we go again. The common sense should prevail. If I'm using subheadings, it's because I'm using more than one. If not, what's the use? This is the hierarchy I was telling you about. Level 1 is the title, center, boldface. Then if you have a level 2, that is one that subordinates to that first level, then you flush it left. And then from that point on, you have indented boldface for a level 3 within, that is this one. In other words, this one goes within this one, and this one goes within this one, and this one within, and so on and so forth. Maybe you don't need this one. Maybe you solve your problem with a one subheading or of the same level, because probably you're studying interventions in Coral Park High School, in the Law Academy, and Ronald Reagan. So you have a subheading for Coral Park, the other one, but it's in the same level, and maybe you don't need to use the different levels. You can solve the problem with everything on the same level there. So, I mean, I don't think we were going to write. Because one you see, bold and then bold but flush, but then bold and then one that is not bold. Like an example of the headings: management theories, then a level 2, because this one goes there, and these two, contingency theory and system theory, are part of the management theory. So I think you see it clearly there. Now, if you ask me, would I use in a simple, probably because I'm thinking of simpler papers, and that's why I don't like the writing the subheadings in bold or title in bold, but maybe there's a reason for it. Okay, maybe they make it a point there. You don't have to subscribe 100% to what I say, because there's competition. Okay, put it like that. Tables and figures, quantitative data, occasionally, table is just a word that's used there. Must include title and heading as appropriate. Let's see the example. Do you have an example of a table?
Yeah, let's say theory.
Within the text, yeah. This is a sample table within the text, not at the end. Something that you have to include there. Figures. In APA papers, any type of illustration other than a table is called a figure. Can be a chart, graph, photograph, drawing, or other description, and they are numbered sequentially. And they must include a caption. If you have pictures, pictures must be identified in the text prior to appearing. You go. The proper way to hold a pen, presented by, so on and so forth. Illustrates, when they explain there, there's an explanation of the figure before, and then sort of bottom line there.
That's when you hold the pen APA style.
The correct one. There you go. Because when you use MLA, you use the other hand. You hold it differently. And I think that's the end. The author of this PowerPoint have listed apastyle.org and composition textbooks. I added for the Purdue and let me show you now what it's all about, because to me it's a great resource. So you may have this PowerPoint, you may want to get that book or any other book, but that's very useful, and it's not too expensive. But I find sometimes when somebody else in our lab is using that book in particular, that then I go, or for some reason it disappears, and no one knows, where is it, and we only have one copy there. So I go to Purdue. But let me show you what it's about. And it looks like this. Okay, you see? MLA, APA.
How reliable is this website?
It's very reliable.
Like,
It's
100%,
this
like
is
99.9?
this is the Bible. This is what it is. This is I swear by this one. Okay, and the good thing about it is it's nationally recognized. It has a very, very well established reputation, and yeah, let me show you. You have an MLA guy, not what we're dealing here with, but anyway, but it's very thorough, very thorough. You have the APA style guy, and it gives you the definition. It has overview and workshop, formatting style. You can find out what is APA, when to use it, what to use. So it's it's citations in text, sample papers, you name it. It's very, very thorough. As I said, it's for us. It's and not only I'm saying that. If you ask Dr. Dolinsky or Edgar. Dr. Arbaya, we hold this website in all its value, and it provides examples. So it's not only the theory; you can see it there, and everything that I explained, and it's updated too. Okay, so the abstract. Look at the abstract, the way they present the abstract with the keywords. Remember, our dear friends here don't mention keywords. They do. The OWL does it. You have the keywords indented. The rest of the abstract is only one block, one paragraph, not indented. Keywords indented. The word keyword proper in italics, and then a list of keywords separated by commas. So, and even listen, it may so happen that you follow this, for example, and your professor tells you, what about this format? And you said, no, I'm using I'm following it pretty well, and it's nothing wrong with that, or I'm using this. Because then, on top of everything else, there is the professor's, the instructor's personality and what comes to it, and the specific options and guidelines that he or she wants you to follow. You have to keep that in mind. For instance, some instructors do not require an abstract. They don't want an abstract. So, or like for example, the use of Times New Roman is a requirement. It's generally the preferred font, but maybe your professor is more inclined towards another format or another font. That I'm exaggerating there, because generally Times New Roman font 12 is what is generally used with. Can go on forever. So, but it's a great resource. Okay. In text citations, the basic, which is you have all kinds of examples there. So, and the other thing, et al, followed by a period, blah blah blah. Electronic sources within the number page numbers, footnotes, and even footnotes and endnotes. We generally don't use it, but that's a possibility. Okay. Speaking of what you said, let's go back to Google again. The citation builder. Let me show you what it looks like. Well, citation machine. I remember that I said monster, but it's either that or, check it out. In APA, you have an APA, you have an MLA, and even Chicago too. So how this works is you choose one of the styles you're writing. In our case, APA. Okay, and then you go from there. You author, you book, magazine, newspaper, website, journal. So you start filling out here and you follow the steps, and at the end it gives you the type of quotation that you, or the way it should go in the reference. I don't know whether it organizes the whole thing. I haven't gone to that extreme, but at least individually you can have your reference in the right order. The only thing you need to do after that is put in alphabetical order in your reference list. Woo! Can you turn on the light? I don't have anything else. You have questions that you may have. Did they promise anything to eat or something? Any? What's it? Oh, it's almost there. Okay. Any questions, concerns? Actually, I'm going. As I said, I'm going to collect your emails. I'm going to send you the. If you have any questions, email me back, and I'll be more than happy to. But believe me, common sense. Okay. Oh, take pictures of that, please. The book. And that's where I'm late. Yeah. And we are next door. So any questions, concerns? There are people as